conditions at MCC have been horrifying for years. And in fact, my very first time on Democracy Now! A decade ago, we talked about conditions at MCC then. As we talked about then, as journalist Aviva Stahl wrote about in a searing expose last year, conditions there are dirty, the facility is decrepit, it's vermin infested, things break. So sometimes elevators break and lawyers can't visit their clients. Stahl reported how often the sewage system breaks.
Well, in that piece itself, you in fact referred to the facility as a gulag.
Right. I mean, in many ways, it is hard, and I think it has been hard for people to wrap their heads around a federal jail in Lower Manhattan, on Wall Street, right, with conditions that seem akin to, right, a third world dictatorship, right? Dirty, too hot and too cold, fruit flies, mice. Extreme isolation in parts of MCC. Conditions vary in the facility. Reportedly, Jeffrey Epstein had been moved to the special housing unit on 9 South.
That's essentially solitary confinement.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so, again, just to remember, these are pre-trial facilities. People are being held in solitary confinement before any conviction, before any trial, and most international bodies consider sort of extended solitary confinement a form of torture.
So just on Jeffrey Epstein, already in July, there was a report that he had attempted suicide or his cellmate had tried to kill him or attack him. We still don't even know what happened there, but that's when he was put on suicide watch. And then apparently psychologists said he can go off it. But even then, after coming off suicide watch, you're supposed to be in a cell with another prisoner with eyes on at least, every half hour. And how is it possible that this happened with him there? That he was alone for hours on end.
For those of us who have studied kind of the Federal Bureau of Prison, it is not unusual, the kind of lack of mental health care, the kinds of conditions that we've now heard about with Mr. Epstein. Insufficient mental health care. So, for instance, there is only one psychiatrist that serves both MCC and the sister facility in Brooklyn called the Metropolitan Detention Center that we had heard about this winter. One psychiatrist.
That was freezing.
That was freezing. People, again, report that oftentimes you're treated through your cells flat. You're not even face-to-face. That he was put in solitary confinement after perhaps trying to kill himself is not, it should be rare. It should not be happening. But it's not surprising in terms of the way that the Federal Bureau of Prisons often, what happens in these federal facilities and the kind of lack of sustained, serious sort of attention to people who might be showing suicidal tendencies, who might be having mental health issues. Studies show that suicide is higher in jails than in prisons. There have certainly been suicides in federal facilities, so much so that in 2012, in an absurd turn of events, the director of prisons, after a spate of suicides in federal facilities, wrote a letter to every inmate telling them not to lose hope. Mm-hmm. Again, an absurd way to deal with mental health care in the federal system.
Well, can you comment on the fact that often suicide watch is carried out, the people who monitor people who are prisoners who are, or people who are detained who are suicidal are often inmates, not even prison guards?
Well, also, what happened to Epstein, as they are reporting, is that he was put in solitary confinement, and there is something that should be counterintuitive and counterproductive of putting someone who is having mental health issues in solitary confinement. And yet that is often what happens.
And could you speak specifically, you said a little about this, but this area, 9 South and 10 South, which is reportedly worse than 9 South, how are conditions there different from the rest of the facility of MCC?
So 9 South and then 10 South is even more isolating. It's solitary confinement. There is a recreation facility on the roof that some inmates can access at MCC, but often people in 9 South and definitely people in 10 South are not allowed up there. So much of my work has been about researching 10 South. 10 South, the isolation is extraordinary. There's a shower in your cell, so you shower in your cell. You might have an hour of recreation in a solitary cage, but you never go outside. You are often, they often cancel recreation, so you can go days without leaving your cell. There's a camera on you all the time when you shower, when you go to the bathroom on 10 South, so you're being watched constantly. There's a light on all the time. The isolation up there, and people are often held there for years. But we haven't taken this seriously. While this is coming as a surprise to the general public, people held at MCC have filed legal motions for years talking about these conditions. They've filed administrative remedies for years. The DOJ knew. The U.S. attorneys knew. Judges in the Southern District of New York knew. And either they turned the other way or they allowed it.